Now we'll move to the next chapter. That is the next part of the drugs acting on cardiovascular system. And that is vasodilator and or symphatolytics. Okay, as the name indicates, there are two different parts. That is the vasodilator is different, symphatolytic is different. Okay, so the vasodilator they are responsible for the directly dilating the vessels. Symphatolytics they are also responsible for the dilatation of vessels, but they are indirectly acting on the vessels so that the blood vessels or the vessels can be dilated. Okay, so as the name indicates, vasodilators, it is divided into two parts, that is the vaso and dilators. So vaso means vessels, dilator means which can dilate the vessels. Okay, so the drugs which are responsible for the dilatation of the vessels, they are called as vasodilators. Here the second part, that is the symphatolytic, it also having the two parts, symphato and lytic. Symphato, that is the symphatic system, lytic means breakdown. So the symphatomimetics or symphatomimetics, that means the agonist or which are given to produce the similar kind of effect like adrenaline. So that is the symphatomimetics. Symphatolytics, it is completely opposite. They are the inhibitors, they are the blockers. Okay, so when the symphatolytic drugs are given, they block the adrenergic nervous system. Okay, it may be the alpha blockers or it may be the beta blockers. So these sympathomimetic systems or these receptors, that is the alpha beta receptors, they are present in the heart muscles, in the blood vessels, smooth muscles. Okay, so what happens, they are responsible for the contraction of these heart muscles or the blood vessels. But when we are giving the lytic drugs, that is the inhibitors, this their activity is inhibited, that is their contraction of the heart muscles. Okay, that activity or the smooth muscles, contraction of smooth muscle, that activity is inhibited. So vasodilators and or symphatolytics, these are the two different parts. The vasodilator generally they act directly on the blood vessels, they dilate the blood vessels. Symphatolytically they are generally the indirect acting, they are responsible to inhibit the activity of adrenaline on alpha receptor and beta receptor, which are related in our syllabus. And what are the uses of vasodilators? So the if dilatation of vessels takes place, suppose this is vessels. Okay, so during the atherosclerosis, the formation of plaque or there is a deposition of cholesterol inside the vessel takes place. Okay, so due to this, the blood flowing through this, their force increases, their pressure increases because these plaques which are present in the vessels. In this way, the blood pressure increases, the workload on the heart increases, workload on the heart muscle increases. Okay, it results into the hypertension. But when we are dilating the vessels, now if these vessels, if their dilatation takes place, so this space increases, and the space, that is the internal diameter of these vessels increases, more amount of blood can be flow through the vessels and more amount of blood can be supplied to the heart. So what happens, heart will get more amount of blood, hence the workload on the heart decreases, blood does not forcefully passes through these vessels, so the blood pressure increases. So these vasodilators ultimately they are responsible to decrease the hypertension, so they act as in the treatment of hypertension. They are also responsible in the treatment of heart failure. They are also given in the vascular diseases, renal diseases, pulmonary hypertension. So such diseases, such symptoms, the vasodilators can be used. Now next part is the classifications of vasodilators and symphatolytics. Is that the vasodilators like hydralazine takes place. Then second one, potassium channel agonist, minoxidil. Then the symphatolytic system in that beta blockers and alpha blockers. Okay, so beta blockers, non-selective, selective beta 1 blockers, selective alpha 1 blockers, mixed alpha and beta blockers. Now you just go through symphatolytic drugs. They are non-selective, selective, mixed. So what is the difference between these selective, non-selective and mixed? Suppose a drug act on beta 1 receptor. It blocks the beta 1 receptor, and it does not act on any alpha receptor or any other beta receptor like beta 2. It acts only on beta 1 receptor. Then you can say that the drug is selective beta 1 blocker. Okay, so the drugs selective beta 1 blockers, they only block the beta 1 receptor. They will not block beta 2 receptor or any other alpha receptor. Okay, now suppose a drug is act or will block beta 1 receptor, and somewhat it having the activity on beta 2 receptor. So they having the activity on beta 1 plus beta 2. So the such drug is called as non-selective beta blockers. That means they can act on beta 1 as well as the beta 2 receptor. They will not act on alpha receptor. They will act only on the all the beta receptors or one or more than one beta receptor. So they becomes non-selective. And the third part, that is the mixed alpha beta blockers. So the carvedilol, labetalol, these are the drugs which can act on alpha block, which act as beta blockers. That is alpha blockers and beta blockers. So they are having the activity on both alpha as well as the beta. So they are called as the mixed alpha beta blockers. So in this way the classification of these vasodilators or symphytolytic takes place. Vasodilators, hydralazine, potassium channel agonist, minoxidil. Then these are the symphytolytic drugs. Now we will start with the first drug, that is the hydralazine. It is a direct vasodilator. Okay, so this is the structure of hydralazine. So this is the hydrazine part. This is thalazine part. So the hydralazine is called as 1-hydrazine thalazine. This is thalazine, this is hydrazine, so 1-hydrazine thalazine. It is the first orally active antihypertensive drug which is marketed. Now we'll move to their mechanism of action. So until now the mechanism of action is hydralazine is not certain that this can act by this mechanism. We cannot say. Sometimes it may act by one mechanism, sometimes it may act by second mechanism. But the dilation of artery or how it dilates the artery, that mechanism is remain uncertain. But it is there are some evidence that it can act by different ways. So one of the way is that they are responsible to inhibit release of calcium, which is induced by the IP3 daxistin in that IP3 inositol triphosphate. So hydralazine is responsible to inhibit inositol triphosphate induced release of calcium from intracellular storage. So if the concentration of calcium decreases, then it is difficult for the heart muscles to undergo the contraction process, because for the muscles to be contract it requires the calcium ions, and due to the inhibition of their storage it is difficult to get the calcium ions for the contraction of heart muscles. So it diminishes the contraction as the intracellular calcium ion decreases. So this hydralazine promotes dilation by opening the calcium activated potassium channel, and also it releases the nitric oxide, which is the directly acting vasodilators. Okay, already we have seen the its mechanism of action, how the nitric oxide works in angina pectoris. So I will not repeat here. You should know only they are responsible to release nitric oxide, which are responsible for the vasodilators. Note that it does not relax venous smooth muscles. Now the second drug, that is the minoxidil, that is the potassium channel agonist. Drug minoxidil is discovered in 1965. This is the structure of minoxidil. Okay, so actually minoxidil having the its usefulness in the treatment of hair loss. Actually, generally the drugs minoxidil is given for the patient to grow the hairs on the bald areas. Okay. It also acts as antihypertensive drug, that is in the treatment of hypertension. Okay. But the minoxidil is not an active drug, it is a prodrug. For the activation of minoxidil, it has to be converted into the active drug, and this active drug is converted with the help of enzyme sulfotransferase. So this sulfotransferase converts the prodrug minoxidil into the minoxidil NO sulfate. So here you are getting NO. Okay. So I will just draw this NO remain as it is, and here the sulfate formation takes place, that is the double bond O, and here comes OH. So on this oxygen there is a binding of HSO3 takes place, that is the sulfate group takes place, which is the active form of drug minoxidil. The minoxidil is the prodrug. It undergo sulfation reaction by the sulfotransferase to the active drug, that is the sulfate drug, as minoxidil NO and over sulfate group. So it is called as minoxidil NO sulfate. Okay. So what is the role of this minoxidil, or how it acts as an antihypertensive agent? So it is a potassium channel agonist. Okay. Now in case of potassium channel, so potassium is remain inside the cell. So it is the intracellular ions, and outside there is the presence of positive charge species. Okay. So when the potassium channel agonist is given like minoxidil, it opens the potassium channels and efflux of potassium takes place from intracellular into the extracellular. So when efflux takes place outside the cell, there is a positive charge which increases due to the efflux of potassium, and inside potassium is released, so negative charge increases. So in this way the potential difference between the extracellular part and intracellular part, it is increase, and it is called as hyperpolarization, and this hyperpolarization is responsible for the relaxation of स्मूथ मसल्स. लक्षात आलं. सो आतमध्ये निगेटिव्ह चार्ज असतो, बाहेर मध्ये पॉझिटिव्ह चार्ज असतो, आणि पोटॅशियम आयन हे इंट्रासेल्युलर आयन्स आहे. सो व्हेन potassium channel agonists are given, it opens potassium channel, so the influx of potassium takes place outside the cell. So outside the cell the positive charge increases. As the positive charge goes outside, inside the cell negative charge increases, so the potential difference increases. It results into the hyperpolarization, and it results into the relaxation of smooth muscles. So relaxation of hard muscles takes place. Okay. So in this way they are useful in the treatment of hypertension. So this is the second drug, minoxidil. Now next part, antiadrenergic drug. So antiadrenergic, they are either alpha blockers or the beta blockers, which are given as a symphytolytic drugs, which are indirectly dilates the vessels. Okay. So alpha blockers, they are also classified into alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 3, out of which for our syllabus point of view we should know what is alpha 1 receptor. So the alpha 1 receptor are present in the smooth muscles, liver and salivary gland. So in salivary gland they are responsible for the secretion. Here they are responsible for the glycogenolysis. But in case of smooth muscles, they are responsible for the contraction of smooth muscles. So the contraction of blood vessels takes place. So the alpha 1 receptor is responsible for the contraction of blood vessels. लक्षात आलं. And if you have to dilate the blood vessels, what you have to do? You have to give alpha 1 receptor blockers. Okay. Got the points? Alpha 1 receptor is present in the smooth muscle, which is responsible for the contraction. So if we are giving the alpha 1 receptor blocker, it will block the alpha 1 receptor. So there is no contraction of smooth muscles, there is no contraction of the blood vessels. So ultimately it will result into the blood dilatation. Now through which mechanism these alpha and beta receptor act. So when adrenaline bind to the beta receptor, they activates adenine cyclases, which are responsible for the conversion of ATP into the cyclic AMP, and this cyclic AMP activates protein kinase. Protein kinase causes the phosphorylation, and ultimately it will result into the activation of calcium binding proteins, and it will causes the contraction. Similarly, alpha 1 receptor, it also responsible to release protein kinase and calcium. So the kinase is responsible for the phosphorylation. Along with the calcium, they are responsible for the contraction of smooth muscle. So this alpha 1 receptor acts through the phospholipase C enzyme, which is responsible to convert into the IP3 DAX system, that is the inositol triphosphate and diacyl glycerol. Okay, but if you observe alpha 2, here negative, negative, negative is written. That means they are responsible for the inhibition of adenine cyclase. So there is no formation of cyclic AMP, no formation of protein kinase. So it will causes the dilatation of blood vessels, or it will not causes the contraction. So in case of antihypertensive drug, you can give beta blocker, alpha blocker, and alpha 2 agonist, because this activity is opposite to the activity of beta receptor. So beta receptor causes contraction, alpha 2 receptor causes inhibit the contraction or relaxation. Okay, so if it is relaxing the smooth muscles, we no need to give the antagonist, you can give the alpha 2 agonist. So beta blockers, alpha 1 blockers, or alpha 2 agonist. What is sympatholytic drugs, which decreases the sympathetic activity, which blocks the interaction of norepinephrine or adrenaline agonist with the receptors. So these drugs, they are called as antiadrenergic drugs, sympatholytic drugs, adrenergic blocking agents, or adrenergic blockers. Now classification into alpha antagonist and beta antagonist. Alpha antagonist, again non-selective. In non-selective, they are again classified into reversible and irreversible. For our point of view, our syllabus point of view, we have selective alpha 1 antagonist, that is the quinazoline ring structure as a lead molecule. So prozosine, terazosin is there for your syllabus. Then selective alpha 2 antagonist is there. Example yohimbine, it is not there for our syllabus. Then beta antagonists, they are classified into selective, non-selective, and mix. So non-selective, selective beta 1 antagonist, and mix alpha beta antagonist. So these two drugs which are mixed, labetalol, carvedilol, there is for our syllabus. This beta antagonist is also there for our syllabus. Non-selective like propranolol, nonolol is there also for our syllabus. Okay, now we move to the next part, beta blockers. So this is the general structure of beta blocker. Now we will move to the sympatholytic drugs. In that beta blockers, so we start with the beta blockers. The drugs which are responsible to block the beta receptor, they are called as the beta blockers. So that is the general structure of beta blockers. Okay, so this AR indicates aryl group. This is oxy 1, 2, and 3. So propyl with hydroxypropanol, and this is amine substitution. So amine. So this beta antagonist is called as aryl oxypropanol amine. Okay, so they consist of, in case of SAR, if we have to go through, this is the general structure for the beta antagonist. So secondary amine, this is secondary amine, NHR. If R is H, that is primary amine, it will decreases the activity, but NHR, it is the secondary amine, it will require for the optimum activity. Then at beta position, hydroxy group is there. So this beta hydroxy group, it must be in S configuration. So we have R configuration and S, out of which this hydroxy group must be in the S configuration. Then OCH2 group has been incorporated between aromatic ring and ethyl amino side chain. Okay, so this OCH2 group. Okay, and this is CH2 CH2. This is the ethyl. This is amino. So OCH2 group must be present between ethyl amino side chain and aromatic group. So such case is present, it gives more potent beta blocker. That means this aryl oxypropanolamine is the potent beta blocker. Now this aromatic ring or the nature of aromatic ring, it is responsible for the ADME, pharmacokinetics, absorption, distribution, metabolism and elimination. So if at the para position of this aromatic ring, suppose this is the aromatic ring, at the para position of the aromatic ring there may be presence of substitution, it will give the proper activity. But at this is ortho, this is meta. If any substitution is there on meta position, it will decreases the beta 1 selectivity. So M position must be the empty so that beta A selectivity will be more. Now if the given molecule is lipophilic in nature, so as we know, if it is lipophilic it can cross the blood brain barrier, so it will produces the CNS side effects. As it can crosses the blood brain barrier, it will enters into the brain CNS system, and there is also some adrenergic receptors are present, so adrenergic receptor, so it can block that receptor and they are responsible to produce the sedative effect or the CNS side effects. Okay, and if hydrophilic drug, they cannot cross the BBB, blood brain barrier, so it will not produce any side effects. As well as such drugs, that is this neurotransmitter, they are having the structural similarities with other neurotransmitter which act on the CNS, so it will produces the sedative like side effect. So these are some examples of beta antagonist: propranolol, pindolol, nadolol. So these are some examples of beta antagonists of first generation. Okay. Okay, the next chapter, that is the anti-arrhythmic drugs. Okay, so the name it divided into two parts, that is the anti and arrhythmia. Okay, so the drug which are useful in the treatment of arrhythmia, such drugs comes under the anti-arrhythmic drugs. So again, arrhythmia is, you can divide into rhythmia or rhythm and arrhythm or arrhythmia. Okay, so the normal functioning of the heart, normal their pumping, normal their contraction, relaxation, it is the normal rhythm of the heart. If there is any changes in the normal rhythm of the heart, it leads to the arrhythmia. Okay, so the heart contraction takes place, heart relaxation takes place, blood enters into the heart, blood exit into heart, it is provided to all parts of the body. Okay, so this movement of this arrhythmia, it is divided into PQRST system. So आपण कार्डियोग्राफ बघतो, ते consist of the PQRST system. So that PQRST system is due to the normal rhythm of the heart. If any changes in that PQRS system takes place, that means the heart is not functional properly. There is arrhythmia of heart. There is not normal rhythm of the heart. And if such cases are there, if we have to treat this arrhythmia, we have to bring the arrhythmic condition into the normal rhythm, normal condition. The drug which we have to give, that is called as anti-arrhythmic drugs. Okay. So what is arrhythmia? So arrhythmia is defined as abnormality or non-functioning of heart in their normal rhythm. If heart is not beating in the normal rhythm, it is called as arrhythmia. So if any abnormality is there in the heart rhythm, it is called as arrhythmia. So it may be the bradycardia, it may be the tachycardia. Okay, so in bradycardia, what happens? A heartbeat very slowly. That is the rate of heartbeat is very slow. So generally less than 60 beats takes place per minute. Generally it is 72 in the normal condition, but due to the bradycardia it decreases and it goes below the 60. What is tachycardia? If the heart rate increases more than 100 beats per minute, if heart is beating fast, okay, तुम्ही exercise करून आला, if you are exercising, okay, after exercising you have to breathe fastly, so that is the fast breathing of this. Why? Because it requires more amount of oxygen supply. So to provide this oxygen demand, we are breathing fastly so that more amount of oxygen can be provided to the heart. Okay, so this is the normal. When you will sit for 5 to 10 minutes, it goes down to the normal level. But if continuously it is more than 100, it is called as tachycardia. 100 per minute. Okay, more than 100 beats per minute, it results into the tachycardia. So these agents, they are useful in the treatment of these uh, arrhythmic condition of the heart. Okay, and such drugs, they are also called as dysrhythmia medication. They are a group of the drugs, group of the pharmaceutical used to suppress the abnormal rhythm of the heart. The cardiac arrhythmia आहे ते नॉर्मल करायचं काम कोण करतं? दिस ग्रुप ऑफ दी ड्रग्स. ओके, सो कार्डियाक अरिथमिया मध्ये कुठले कंडिशन येतात? फायब्रिलेशन, फ्लटर, टॅकिकार्डिया, ventricular fibrillation. So all these conditions comes under this cardiac arrhythmia. Now, what is the difference between flutter and? So in fibrillation, the beating of arteria takes, suppose atrial fibrillation is there. So beating of arteria takes place irregularly. Irregular beating of arteria, it is called as atrial fibrillation. Or what is atrial flutter? It beats regularly but faster than usual. So this is fibrillation, this is flutter. Okay, so what is the difference between atrial fibrillation? The beating of arteria takes place irregularly. Here ventricular fibrillation, that is the beating of ventricular takes place irregularly. When the arteria beat takes place, the blood comes from arteria into the ventricles. Okay, when ventricular beating takes place, it goes outside the heart. So that is the normal functioning of the heart. If the arteria is beating irregularly, it is called as fibrillation, and if it is beating regularly but more faster than usual, it called as the flutter. Okay, for example, there is one arteria beats one times, then beating of ventricular takes place. That is the normal rhythm. If arteria beat two times, then one time ventricular beating takes place. Again arteria beat two times, again one time ventricular. So that is the normal rhythm. That is the two times arteria, one times ventricle, two times arteria, one times ventricle. So that is the regular beating. दोन एक दोन एक, that is the regular, but it is faster than normal. Normal ला काय? 1 1 1 1. But if 2 1 2 1 2 1, if like this the beating takes place, it is called as flutter. That is the regular but faster. Okay, got the point? Now, in case of fibrillation, okay, so normal what we have seen, one atria, one ventricle. So what happens? Ventricle beats two times, one time, sorry, atria beat two times, one times ventricular beating takes place. Again it may beat three times, ventricular only one time. Again it may beat four times, ventricular one time. So it is not confirmed that the atria will beat one time, two times, three times, or how many times during the one beating of the ventricle. So this is irregular. You can say that one beating of ventricle, then one beating of atria, one beating of ventricle, then two beating. You cannot say. Sometimes one beating of ventricle, then two beatings of atria. Sometimes one beating of ventricle, three beatings of atria. So that is the irregular. So such condition is called as fibrillation. But you know that after one ventricular beating, only the two beatings of atria, 1 2 1 2, like this, the 2 is common, 2 is same. So at that time it is faster, but it is regular. At that time it called as arterial flutter. So that is the difference between the fibrillation and flutter. So if this condition is called as arrhythmia, and antiarrhythmic drugs are useful for the treatment of such conditions. Now this is PQRST system. Okay, so this PQRST system, okay, so this phase 4 0 1 2 3, it is also called as PQRST. It is a normal cardiogram what we have taken. So this depending upon the different influx and efflux of different ions which are present across the cell membrane. So we know that inside the cell membrane there is negative charge, outside there is positive charge. Okay, so if influx or efflux, it will result into the formation of these different phases, that is the phase 0 1 2 3 4. You may already have studied in the anatomy or pharmacological part, that is the how this takes place. So this is the normal, and any changes in this PQRST system, it will lead to the arrhythmia, and these drugs are given for the treatment of arrhythmia. Okay, so the classification in that class 1 block sodium channel. Okay, so this class 1 it act on phase 0. Class 2 is beta antagonist. So class 2 it act on phase 4. Class 3 is potassium channel. It act on potassium channel. It prolong action potential and prolong refractory period. So this act on these phases. And class 4 calcium channel antagonist, this act on this phase 4. So depending upon their mechanism of action, which channel they are blocking, they are classified to 4 types. On what phase they are acting, they are classified to class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4. Again class 1 they are classified into class 1A, class 1B and class 1C.